The Wests Tigers podcast is brought to you by the Wests Tigers Podcast Forum. Join the conversation today at weststigerspodcast.com.au.
West Tigers Podcast, episode 456. I'm not your usual host. Joel's actually given himself a night off. Not sure if I proved that, but enjoy your night, Joel. So he's given me the honour of hosting the show tonight. So very, very honoured to be able to take over the microphone for this one. So very good evening to Jordan and Josh. Great to see you boys. Jordan, I think we last spoke to you a couple of nights ago when you crashed the pod on your way back to the car after your post-game celebrations after the Knights win. Just if you can fill us in how that went for anyone that may have missed the previous pod.
Yeah, it was great. Obviously at the game, and then we hung around so the kids could see the players at the fence, and then we went to the Sherwood afterwards and waited for the players to come through. And I'm glad I had the foresight to jump in the queue that was already building while my family got dinner, because within a few minutes, that queue was out the door and behind the tennis courts, and there were hundreds and hundreds of fans just waiting to get a glimpse of the boys, and watching them come into the Sherwood and getting cheered on, and the Tigers chant coming up in a ruckus was quite a sight to see.
How did the players receive that? I imagine they probably would have been a bit swamped and overwhelmed by a lot of that.
There was your usual suspects. Taruva ate it all up and was, jeering everyone on and hyping them up. And a few of the boys were lapping it up, and then a few were just, walking in as their casual selves. And then Benji was stoic as anything, gave a little wave to the crowd and got to his spot. But no, it was they all received it really well, and they were great considering we were there probably for about half an hour, 40 minutes by the time it got to us, and there were still a few hundred people behind me, so they would have been there a while.
Yeah, that's epic. I would have loved to have been there, but it was holidaying. But before I get to a quick debrief on my holiday, Josh, we didn't catch you in the last pod, but you were out there at Campbelltown. How was the overall day? I want to know about the crowd. From what I saw on TV, because I did watch it from up in sunny Queensland, the crowd was massive. It looked packed, and I think it was sold out. Am I correct in saying that?
I think it was close to sold out, Nick, but I wasn't one of those people. I was actually at West Ashfield with about 200 people. Very packed up at West Ashfield too. So enjoyed some beers. One of my best mates, Lars Oderscheid, the one of our few Danish supporters was up for the weekend, so we were catching up with some beers. It was a very good atmosphere at West Ashfield too, so everyone's very excited about the win on the weekend. So very good.
Did I watch NRL in Denmark?
Well, he moved over here, and we lived in a share house together, and I dragged him to our first ever game, and his first ever game, and we got beaten by 50 by Souths, and despite that, he just kept coming back. So he was hooked.
That's fantastic. Well, always good to have international supporters, and if Mr. Volandis is watching this, the game's already gone global, so
exactly,
maybe send some games over to Denmark and elsewhere, and you could be onto some winners. But it was certainly an unreal game. I wish I could have been there. I think as Joel mentioned during a couple of pods ago, I have been up in Queensland. I just want to send a quick shout out to my nephew Nathan, who owns an eBay store called Chuck Finley's. I actually popped in to see him and picked up this jersey. I was having a look at his online store before I called in to say hello, and I did search Tigers, just generic Tigers, to see what might come up. And I found this Southport Tigers jersey, which is a Queensland Rugby League team, as some may know, but I don't really care what flavour of Tigers it is. I saw the jersey and thought, that's me. So, Nathan, thanks for the fit out, mate, and very happy to wear this on tonight's pod. So, nice. Yeah, great to catch up with the family, but equally as good to watch that game against the Knights. We did cover this off on the Sunday night pod after the game, but pretty comprehensive win. I know we did lapse a little bit in the last sort of 10 minutes, which took a little bit of the shine off the performance. But I mean, Josh, what was your overall take on the game and then the way we finished off?
Overall take was fantastic. Like that was a great effort. We really blew them off the park in the first half and then the first part of the second half, which was really good. I think our backs were dominant. Our forwards were just hitting them too hard and running too strong. Look, in the last 15 minutes, Samuela was off, Appy was off. Um, one of the tries did come from a bomb. That kind of thing can happen. And the boys were, I think, just excited. They'd had a big win. They're well in front. Yes, they shouldn't have let in some tries, and I'm sure Benji was happy to have something to have something to be grumpy about. But from my point of view, and the fact I was about 15 schooners deep, it was fantastic still. So yeah, it was fine.
Have you watched the replay or any highlights, Josh, just to recap? Because 15 schooners, I don't know if I'd remember much of the game at all.
I did watch some highlights just to kind of click in, but no, it was fantastic. Look, I think the boys did really well. It was a really great victory, and it's good we've kind of ground out some wins, so it's good to have some wins where we come out and blow teams away too, to show we can. So really good.
That's very true. Jordan, I know we only got a quick snippet with you or 5-minute chat when you hijacked on Sunday night, but we did talk about, and I know you mentioned, I think, when you jumped on as well, that Benji during the post-game presser did say that he was a little bit peed off with the way that they finished and was unacceptable. So pretty harsh words, which I was actually really glad to hear as well, because I imagine a lot of his focus since then at training would have been, you've got to stick to your standards. I don't care who's off the field, what stage of the game it is, how far in front you are. I'm pretty sure they're the standards that he wants to drive, that we will continue to be able to play to those standards through the whole 80. But what's your thoughts on that part?
Yeah, he seemed quite disappointed with that last quarter of the game, which I understand. I actually made a comment to him when we saw him at the Sherwood, was like, oh, the boys are doing well, and he commented basically back straight up going, yeah, we're doing all right, can be better. And it was in that moment that I realized is like he's holding that standard, which is what we want. And the fact that even though, yes, it was 42-22 in the end, it should have ultimately been 42-10. And we can't have those lapses against stronger teams, even though Newcastle are up there and we put a dominant display against them. We've got to be better for the full 80. We can't be good for 65 minutes. And that's what I think he wants, is he wants that full 80 and not that lapse at the end where we think we've got the win. Because in those situations, if it's 28-12 and all of a sudden, it's hard to win a game once, let alone twice.
Yep.
So I'm glad he's holding them to that standards. And it looks like, unless he's injured, it looks like Skelton may have paid the price for his pass in the in-goal, because he's not in the squad whatsoever.
That's an interesting one I'm noticing with Benji this year, is he seems to be holding everyone accountable for any type of action or reaction, and I think you might be right. I think Skelton, apart from that mistake, was pretty solid, and he made some really good runs, some good kick returns, and a lot of good meterage, and that's what he's generally does as a big-bodied winger. But yeah, that pass from the in-goal, I think I heard someone say, I think Declan might have said on the pod the other night, that one of his mates in a separate chat had suggested that Macassini may have called for the ball in the in-goal, and he did put himself in a position behind Skelton to take that. But when you're up comfortably and there's still a fair chunk of the game to go, those sort of decisions, you've just got to get out of your game. I don't think you'd see that from a Penrith side. You wouldn't see it from a Melbourne side, let alone anyone else in the top four. And I mean, it's really nice at the moment that we can say we're in the top four. It's not very often that we get to celebrate this, and I want to highlight a bit on that on today's pod as well. But yeah, you could be right. Skelton may have suffered or lost his jersey this week because of that. But at the same time, we've got a couple of ins which I think supplement the loss of Skelton, which we'll get to as well. So yeah, pretty exciting that we're actually running second after 6 weeks, which kind of leads me into the next section that I wanted to talk about. I'm calling this Did You Know? And I've got a couple of trivia questions. They're not really trivia questions, it's more points. So I was just digging around at a couple of things in the last day or so, trying to think, how can I structure this pod and what can we talk about? But most people will know this and be very well aware, especially in recent history, that 2022 and 2023, a couple of our dud years, we only won 4 games in each of those 2 seasons. 4 games in each season is not many. 2 years in a row. We've already won. We won 4, haven't we? We won 4 out of 6.
We have, yeah, 4, yep.
Which is amazing. So after 6 rounds, we've equaled that tally. And the way that we're playing, I think it's fairly safe to say that we're going to win a lot more than 4. So a lot of good times, hopefully coming ahead this year. Although it is very early, and I keep reminding myself it's very early, and I know the competition will balance out a bit, but at the moment it's looking pretty good. The other stat that I actually looked up, I have to do a bit of manual digging for this, but since our inception in the year 2000, after 6 rounds, the West Tigers have been placed in the top 8 10 times, which 10 out of 27 starts, it's not too bad. It's not brilliant, but it's not too bad. And I think we've only kicked on to 3 finals appearances. Shows that we've sort of put ourselves out there a couple of handfuls of times and fallen away a bit. But maybe there's some better building blocks. Josh, what do you reckon on building blocks for this year?
Yeah, and look, I think there are, and I think we've set up well. And I think the fact we've had to reach into some of our depth in those first 5 games and still manage to win is very exciting. I did do a bit of digging myself, Nick, and no team in the top 2 has missed after 6 rounds has missed the finals since 2017 when the Dragons fell out of the finals. So in the most of the last 10 years, everyone in the top 2 after 6 rounds has made the finals. Although the Tigers were in the top 2 up to round 17 in the year 2000 and still managed to somehow finish outside the finals. So, but I think this year we've got the team, we've got the depth. I think that's what really counts. Like, for teams that fall apart as the season goes on, it's because they don't have the depth. I think outside of perhaps Appy and the hooker spot, I think everywhere else we have depth to be able to cover some injuries. So I think that'll hold us in good stead as the year goes on.
I was just thinking it's a very dangerous stat to throw out there when you're saying, only a couple of, did you say no one's missed from the top 2, after 6 rounds? No one's missed yet?
Not since 2017
Okay.
when the Dragons did. So, and that they had a variety of things go wrong that year. So, yeah,
Well,
positive signs.
hopefully
That's a good stat.
it is a good stat, yeah, but hopefully things fall a little bit more our way this year, and we're not one of those statistics, the bad side of the statistics. So, yeah, it'd be nice to think it's a good platform for us to build on. But you're spot on, Josh, in regards to the backups and that depth that we've got, because players like Patrick Herbert that we'll talk about, comes out last week, hasn't played NRL in 4 or so seasons, had an absolute blinder. For me, he was one of the best, at least one of the best backs on the field. And it's hard to pick a bad player when the large majority of your team's playing really well. But I thought he was fantastic and just a great example of what Benji's built up over the off-season to put us in a position where we can, dig a little bit deeper in each pocket if we need to and pull out someone like that can jump in and do such a great job to cover, when our first choice players are not available. But, yeah, very good points there, Josh. I like your stat. Let's hope we can come out on the good side of that one. Jordan, another little topic I had, or a subtopic, I guess, I call it the Dare to Dream topic. I know Benji and the players are looking one game at a time, and that's perfectly fine, but we're coming second after 6 rounds. I want to dare to dream a little bit. And I know we've spoken a little bit, I think on the last pod, Joel might have mentioned our next month, which is interesting. We're playing some stiffer opposition when you look at the teams in terms of the names. So we've obviously got the Broncos this week. We follow that by the Raiders at Leichhardt. Then we've got the Sharks down at, I call it the Cronulla Aquarium. And then followed by the Storm down in Melbourne. So that's a pretty tough month of football, regardless of where those teams are sitting on the ladder at the moment. I don't know if you like to look that far ahead. I get nervous, but I'm interested in your thoughts of how you think we might be sitting.
I have looked at the draw. Like, looking further ahead than that is actually probably the last sort of kind of third or the last quarter of the season. Like, I think we have 8 of our last 10 games are away. So we need to get as many wins as we can early to set us up, because obviously, and I think the big difference compared to other seasons and when we've gotten wins, especially over the last probably 3-4 years, we were never expected to win. And if we did, we got it, we were happy, we were surprised. Where at the moment, we have an expectation based on standards set early, is that we're coming out and we're playing a style of football that is suiting us. Over the next month, I think if we jag half of those 4 games, like if we get 2 out of the 4, it still sets us up well. But we are in a position where all 4 of those games are winnable.
Yep.
the way we're playing. The way, like you were talking about depth just a moment ago, and it's not just the depth, it's the way that our actual starting 13 are playing. Like for me, Alex Twall is nearly a new signing
Yeah.
with the way he's playing. The every time you see an article, they're talking and they bring up Benji, they all have a similar look or demeanor about them when they talk about it, and that is that they've got a coach behind them at the moment that is backing them for whatever ability they have, no matter whether it's a star ability, a team player ability. He is backing each player for who they are and what they can bring, and they all believe it. And having that idea that the coach believes in you can make any player unstoppable. So looking forward, yeah, the Sharks at Shark Park and Melbourne in Melbourne will be tough road trips, and I think we've got to buy either before the Melbourne game or after. If we can keep everybody fit, and as I said, jag 2 of those wins, we will be in great position. But I have every belief we can jag the 4 if we continue the style we're playing.
I'm fairly sure, Josh can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have those 4 that I mentioned, and then we have Manly.
We do, and I think if we could get 3 out of 5, like I'm kind of looking at that kind of block of 5 leading up to the bye. If we can get 3 out of 5, I mean, 3 of them are home games. It doesn't have to. One of them is up in Brisbane, but I think if we can get 3 out of the 5, I think that puts us, that'll probably keep us in the top 2 or 3. And that's kind of where you need to be. This game is probably, with the injuries, probably one of the ones we should win. The Raiders haven't had a great start to the year, and it is at Leichhardt. I think that's a good opportunity. Look, Sharks at Shark Park are always hard for any team. Like that's going to be a struggle for the best teams in the comp. So, and Storm in Melbourne, well, it depends how they go. They're currently on a 4-game losing streak, but you can't imagine that continues forever, and they will be at home. And then Manly, I think the Kieran Foran magic will have well and truly worn off by then. So we should get that done up at Magic Round. But yeah, if we get 3 out of 5, I think that puts us in a good position. So
definitely the way that we've been playing, the way we've started the season. I honestly think, as of today, I'd probably pick us to beat most teams. It does worry me a little bit when I see, when I look at the ladder and I see the Raiders are currently sitting 15th. Their last 5 games, they're 1-4. You look at the Storm, their last 5 games, they're 1-4. They're on 6 points, sitting 13th. But it scares me a bit. It's kind of like Penrith last year that started out with however many losses in a row and took them forever to get moving, and then they eventually, the class shone through and they clawed their way back up the ladder. But I'm sure at some point, the stronger teams, with the stronger rosters and, the depth that they've got, will start to work their way back up the ladder. Hopefully that doesn't mean we're going to go down, but, I guess it's all in our hands at the moment, isn't it? We haven't been full strength really since round 1 or round 2, our first game. And that didn't last very long either, but we're getting closer this week. So yeah, there's some exciting times ahead. It is very surreal though, looking at the ladder. I do it every day, just have a quick look, and it's strange seeing us up there in second place. Don't know about you boys. But
it is very strange.
Second feels very odd at the moment, but we're enjoying it. I think we're all enjoying it. Before we get into Broncos preview, I thought it'd be fitting to look at just very quickly, have a chat about some Tigers-Broncos classic matches, because there've been a few over the years. I did a little quick Google search this morning and just picked out a few, and I know, Josh, you've got another one to throw in, but the first one, Jordan, you may have been fairly young. I did look up your date of birth on Facebook. I think you may have been about 9 in 2000. Am I correct?
Yes, in 2000, I was 9.
You were turning one.
I was at that game with my pop at Campbelltown, that very first game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. The old magpie and the feathers and the very, very old Tigers mascot that was out there at that day. Funny story is I actually, on that same day, I knew one of the ball boys and jumped the fence. And this is back before when security was really, really tight, and ended up running around with them on the sideline, acting as a fill-in ball boy, and ended up in the locker room at the end of the game, which was pretty cool. And that was where I met John Scandalis for the first time, and he became a childhood and lifelong favourite player of mine. But yeah, that was a great. I actually don't remember much about the game. I just remember running around with them around the sideline. But yeah, that was a long. Well, it feels like a long, long, long time ago.
When you jumped the fence, did you have a Tigers jersey on, or were you wearing plain clothes? What was the
I was.
setup?
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. If I actually, I think I think I was wearing my. I got a jersey for my birthday. So my birthday's in January. I got a jersey for my birthday that year when they brought them out, and it was the old one. They had the actual plastic iron on the front.
Yeah.
The Don is good, or was that maybe the
Don is
following?
good.
Or was
Yeah,
it Don,
yeah,
Don Smallgoods or something like that? Can't remember.
His
yeah,
Don is
yeah.
good. Yeah.
I still have that jersey. It is very, very, very old and ratty looking. But
Does it
yeah,
still fit?
oh God, no. Maybe over one arm now, but yeah, no, not a chance. But yeah, I just that's the main thing I remember. I was there with Tommy and jumped the fence and walked around
Yeah.
with all boys.
I think I remember. Was it Scando scored the first try?
Yeah, off the kick.
Yeah, it definitely was. And I'm absolutely certain of that for one very good reason. In 2017, which is a long time after 2000, the Tigers the club ran a competition where you had to record yourself commentating on John Scandalis's the first ever Tigers try.
Yeah.
So I entered this, and then got to go. I then made the final and got to perform it in the middle of ANZ Stadium during the Tigers Dragons game later that year.
Wow.
Where I won a Tigers behind the scenes experience. So me and two mates then later at the game, Mitch Moses' last game for the Tigers, got to go on the field, got to go in the dressing room after. And so I'll always remember that John Scandalis try, the Prince of Props, I think I called him in my commentary stint. So yeah, it'll always hold a warm place in my heart. But yeah, he scored the first try, and Joel Kane scored a hat trick in that match for a 24-all draw. So
That's a very cool
day.
story. Very cool story, all apart from Mitchell Moses' last game for the Tigers. But we'll leave that story.
Everyone booed him. For the first time of many, every Tigers fan booed Mitch Moses. So it was good.
Yeah, that was a messy exit. The next one I had on my list was 2002, the baby Broncos. I don't know if you guys remember that one, but it was the young Broncos side that wasn't meant to get anywhere near the West Tigers, and they ended up beating us 28-14. I think that might have been out of Campbelltown from memory. And from memory, it was a night game as well. But
Yep.
I don't remember a lot about that game, to be honest. I just remember we lost to a team that we shouldn't have lost to. So I don't remember if that was during Origin period or if they just had a bunch of players out.
It was during Origin
Yeah,
period.
it was definitely Origin. Yeah.
Yeah. Their side, checking that out, still looks better than the side we named that night. Like, if I actually look at those sides, it might have been the baby Broncos, but it still looks a better side than the one we were putting on the field. There's some blokes there for the Tigers who, and I've been watching all these years, I've still got no idea who Luke Isaka actually is. So, yeah. So there's a few randoms there on the Tigers side too. So, horrible night.
From memory, I think the Broncos might have debuted a couple of young guys that potentially went on to be stars. I don't remember exactly who they were, but I kind of have a feeling that they might have had some future rep players in that baby team. But yeah, anyway, I had to dig quite deep to find some wins because we don't have a good record against the Broncos, especially
Not at all.
early on. But the next one I brought up was 2005, the prelim, when we beat the Broncos at the football stadium 34-6. Now, I was at this game. I was sitting at probably would have been the northeastern corner. And I remember Benji, I think it was Benji, made a break and ran the length of
Took the intercept.
Yeah, up the
He
other
took
end
the intercept. Yeah.
and scored. Unbelievable night. And that was a game I did not expect us to win, but geez, we were good that night.
Yeah, I was there too that night. That was great. He took the intercept right in front of where I was sitting. And yeah, that was crazy. And then the Dragons the following week, I was there at that game, and that was crazier. And then obviously the grand final. But yeah, that night against Broncos, no one thought we were a chance, and we ended up absolutely controlling that game. It was brilliant.
We did. The thing I remember, Josh, about that game against the Broncos, that final, was the fact that we kept into 6 points, and our defense throughout the back half of that season was so good. Pretty sure by the time the grand final wrapped up, we had the best defensive record, maybe for that back half of the year. And then I think we kept the Dragons the following week to a couple of tries. Might have been 14 points, but yeah, that our defense really set us up for, I guess, the players like Benji and Princey and Robbie to do their work attackingly. And I don't want to draw comparisons. It's such a long time ago. It's a different team, but the way that we're defending now is really setting that backbone to allow our, attacking players and Appy to get on the front foot and start to create off the back of punishing teams in, what we're setting up in defense. But
Yeah, those I agree that those defensive standards that we saw in that back half of 2005 are the same kind of defensive standards we're seeing now. I do remember for that Broncos match, I think Daniel Fitzhenry had the game of his life. So that was always a good sign if some of your lesser players are starring out there. I also remember I was living in Melbourne at the time, and it wasn't on TV until a bit after midnight. So a Tigers fan mate and I stayed in and had all the TV off, everything off until it kicked off, phones off. So we weren't. We were waiting 3 or 4 more hours from everyone else to be able to celebrate that. So very exciting. But I think it's that defense has been the real highlight for this season. So very exciting to keep it going. I think that's probably why Benji was so disappointed with the finish on Sunday, is that our defense this year, we've kept every team under 20 or 20 or under up until this game and that last try. Hopefully that defense keeps going, and it leads to another bunch of finals wins at the end of the year. So
that would be nice. Speaking about defense, I don't know if this was our good defense or just the Broncos' pitiful play in general, but in 2020, and I'd actually forgotten about this. I had to look up the highlights today to jog my memory a bit, but 2020 was the year the Broncos came last for the first time.
Is that the game at Leichhardt?
Adam? Was it the last game
Yep.
at Leichhardt? I remember, did Darius Boyd do a baby reveal after the game finished and they popped the balloon and it was like pink ribbons or something? I remember something stupid, and the fact that the media jumped on board saying, why are they celebrating after they've just wrapped up their first ever wooden spoon?
I swear, that's the same game Luciano Leilua scored off a short dropout.
he did. Yep.
Yep.
I was catching the highlights earlier.
And Billy Walters scored a double, or he maybe scored one or something. Yeah, I remember that.
He
And the
definitely scored
Broncos
one.
were woeful. Looking back at those highlights, they weren't even. I think they've given up. But Harry Grant was fantastic. Tigers legend. Harry is. Yeah, I mean that was a magical night. But the Broncos were woeful that night. Like, I think that's probably the low point of their history. But at least until this Saturday night, anyway. So
Hopefully, 48-0 that one ended up. It was at Leichhardt Oval. I don't actually remember being at that game. I reckon I probably watched that on TV.
It was a wet, cold night.
Horrible, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was a dreadful night. Well, apart from the score, the conditions were dreadful.
Horrible.
But I was there at one. The most famous Tigers game I remember at Campbelltown against Broncos is the game decided by, I can't remember who the referee was, but he sin binned Benji Marshall in the last sort of kind of 10 minutes, and we ended up losing the game off a penalty. And the fan jumped the field and attacked the ref, and that was one game I will never forget there, because everyone wanted blood. Like he had, that referee had to be security escorted out because of that decision. And I can't even actually remember what the sin bin was for, but it cost us the game.
Yeah. We haven't had too many happy memories, but Josh, was there another game that you wanted to mention?
There was one more happy memory. In 2003, the year after the baby Broncos, we did beat the Broncos, I think 14-12 12-10. And it was the first starting game for current West Tigers coach and probably the legend of our club, Benji Marshall. So he played off the bench about 3 weeks before for the Tigers, but he came in and played halfback. And checking out the highlights, he was like about 55 kilos. He was tiny. But he blew them away. The step was on. He put this kick through for a try, a big line break down the middle. It was genuine Benji magic. And I do remember that game. I was living in Canberra at the time, and we were watching it at the pub. And I remember just watching that and thinking, wow, I've never seen this kind of thing on a field from a kid before. This guy could be our future, and obviously he's our future for the next where are we now? What is it? 23 years, and he's still our future. So magical moment for the club. And for Benji, his first starting game as halfback. He was halfback too, not 5'8". So
He
He was
was.
such a scrawny looking thing back then, wasn't he?
really was.
He
He
was.
looked so young.
I was sitting in the stand at Campbelltown when we played the Knights in 2003. Must have been his debut year.
Yeah.
When he scored a try, he put the biggest step on. I can't remember who it was, but it was one of his original steps where he jumps in the air and you have no idea which way he's going. But yeah, he had a bit of curly hair, short back and sides with the big sideburns. But yeah, very scrawny kid, straight out of touch footy and Keebra Park. But yeah, what a player he was, especially early on, like you said, Josh, when no one knew what he was doing and no one had seen that sort of footy before. But yeah, he really transformed the game, and maybe he's transforming coaching. He's certainly come a long way in the first few years that he's been here, and maybe this year is the year that he's figured something out. So, definitely the way he's recruited, that's all helped. But hopefully, and I mentioned this the other night too. Hopefully we're on an upward trajectory, and even though I was left feeling a bit flat after that last 10 minutes the other day, and I was wanting to see us bury the Knights and maybe put on 50 and keep them down to a single try, but maybe that's just a little kick in the pants that we need just to keep the boys focused and get them working hard to when they get in that position next time that they can bury a team rather than let them back in a bit. Jordan.
Yeah, definitely. It would have been nice to get a complete whitewash for the game, but I agree. It's probably the kind of reminder that we needed to go, well, we're heading in the right direction, but we're not completely there yet.
Yep.
We were only 4 points away from being undefeated this season. So, and we lost 2 halves in that game towards the back end of it. So we were in a chance to win it as well. There is a lot of improvement on the ball, off the ball, everywhere that we have seen so far. And we probably have all had I'll rephrase that. There were high expectations set upon us in relation to who we recruited and what we were going to do this year. But I'll reiterate, for a Tigers legend of Braithen Astor from 360 last night, no one saw this coming.
Yeah.
No one saw this kind of turnaround coming. And it's not even just the matter of that we've gotten the wins, it's how we're doing it. It's how we're going about our footy, it's how we're attacking, it's how we're defending. Like, though there were periods in that game against the Knights where we bashed them. And that is not something we've ever been known for. And I think a lot of that, especially that doesn't get recognition, is Kai Pearce-Paul.
Yeah.
His first contact is great, but his kick chase, he is one of the first down there all the time, and it just sets the standard for the start of our defensive sets, and it is a massive inclusion, and I think he's been a great addition so far.
I 100% agree. I think he's been fantastic in defence and attack and all those small moments. But I also say our whole back row. Like, I think we at the moment, for the first 6 rounds, probably have the best back row in the comp. Sam Fainu on one side, doing those same things, Kai Pearce-Paul on the other, and Alex Twal, as we mentioned before, he's like a brand new signing. He has been immense, and he used to tackle a lot. He used to tackle a lot of people, but now he's hitting people. Like, they're getting hurt, and he's throwing passes and flicking and breaking tackles, and amazing from Alex Twal. And then with, as you said, Kai Pearce-Paul and then Sam Weller on the other side. It's the best back row in the comp this year, I reckon.
Well, we knew we had something pretty special last year when we saw Sam Fainu develop into the young player that he is and what he can do. And he's so tall and he's athletic and he can catch a bomb out of the air, and he's got a great offload and he's got a step. He's only a kid. And then you saw what he could started to develop with Romy last year, and that was all left side. And then you look at what Benji did. He went and found Taylan May, who got him on bugger all money. Went and brought KPP over and found someone that really bought into what Benji was preaching and what he was talking about doing at West Tigers, and all of a sudden you've got a right edge that's equally as potent, if not more so, than the left side. And we've only seen Jarome for a game and a bit before he got injured. So, like I said at the start of the pod, we haven't had our full strength team since round 1 or round 2, our first game. So we're getting a lot closer to that this week, and I guess that brings us into the Broncos preview. So again, we're at Campbelltown. It's funny, it took so long to get back to Campbelltown. It was so long between wins at Campbelltown. We managed to break that hoodoo last week, and now we get another crack at it on Saturday night. So 7:35 p.m. I did have a quick look at the forecast, especially coming from a very warm Queensland over the last week back to Sydney. Nice and dry and sunny this week, so it looks like there's no rain forecast. I know Saturday's forecast at this point is 22 degrees maximum during the day with no rain, so I reckon we'll get a dry and a quick track for some fast football. So I guess on the Tigers side, we've got some ins like we just spoke about. We've got Taylan, May and Jarome coming back, so obviously they're both massive. That also allows Macassini to shift back to the wing, which I would prefer to see him, especially at his young age. I think I'd rather let him develop as an NRL player out a bit wider than playing in the centres. Not that he's done a bad job, but I just think he's got a better chance to, I guess, start off on the right foot, being out in the wing, maybe a little less pressure defensively as well, but let him develop into that winger first. And obviously Patrick Herbert gets another crack. So I think I'm really happy with that, Josh.
And you mentioned before that we're close to our full strength team. I think this may be our full strength team. I think, we've seen Stafford Toa hasn't come back from injury and hasn't been picked. So
he didn't finish New South Wales Cup.
And he didn't finish New South Wales Cup, so perhaps he's not going to be back for a little while. I know there's no Cup game this weekend, so you can't see him being back next week either. To me, Pat Herbert, NRL experience after what he did on the weekend with some magic. I reckon this could be our full strength team as we go into the rest of the season. I think all the other positions we're 100% full strength, and then who's your centre? Well, maybe it is Pat Herbert. Lots of NRL experience. Benji and him obviously have a tight relationship. And he can do some spectacular things, and I do remember reading pre-season that when he was at the Gold Coast, he was the strongest pound for pound player in the NRL. So maybe this is our full strength team, and I'm really excited to see Herb continue on the weekend. I love the gridiron pass. I loved his little dummy to score. He did a lot of things right, especially for his first game in 4 years. Like, he had every reason for it to be fairly quiet, and he destroyed it. And the week before, he absolutely blew them away in New South Wales Cup. So he's obviously trained well. We've all trained well. Like, he's come back after 4 years and picked himself up a contract in a team with high standards. Maybe this is our full strength side, and Pat Herbert is our right centre for the rest of the year.
You could be right. I really liked what I saw, and I'm very, very glad that we get another look at it. So that's exciting. Jordan, what happened with Toa in reserves? Did he come off injured, or did they just bring him off for a spell?
Not 100% sure about an injury, but there was no explanation for it. 66, and they didn't have a back on the bench to replace him. But it was around the 65th minute mark he got brought off.
Okay.
And nothing has been reported since. But yeah, from what I saw, is he didn't look 100%. And unfortunately, I don't think, as much as I hate the word, I think he's busted.
Yeah.
I know I've said it before. I think he's busted. I don't know if there's another underlying condition for it, but he cannot put more than a couple of games together. And at this rate, I think he's only played, one or maybe two full New South Wales Cup games.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's great to see Patrick Herbert get another dig. He seems to be a confidence player. He backed himself. I'm keen to see his combination with Taruva grow. I've actually loved watching Taruva in the centres, but then watching him against the Knights, I realised how much we actually need him on the wing, mainly because of his placement. Like, a lot of those tries, like, I know the Dewey pass and everything, it was all down to Dewey, but he doesn't throw that ball if Taruva's not where he's meant to be. And I think we've lacked that with Laulili because he seems to like to stay tight, where Taruva likes to stay wide, and you get those opportunities to get around players. So watching him get a hat-trick on the weekend was great, and it proved why we probably need him out wide instead of at centre.
Yeah, that's very true. We'll get another look at that this week, which is good. Jock's playing at 14. So this was one that we spoke about on the Sunday pod with Joel. I know you weren't on, and you were 15 schooners deep, but I was saying that it's obviously Luai's going to walk into the team. I just find it very, very difficult to take Jock out the way he's played the last 3 weeks. I feel like he's just orchestrated everything we've done attackingly, and I think he's a really good leader. Like, I know he's very vocal, which obviously he would also be barking orders in defence, but I think he's been outstanding since he's come in to jump into the halves.
Yeah, I think Jock has been fantastic, but I'm not surprised that Adam and Jarome are the halves. I think they're leaders at the club. They're high quality players, and they were locked in to be the halves this year. They played well in the first game against the Cowboys. We were right in the Souths game against a good South side until Jarome kind of got injured, and even then we were, it was close. Um, I'm a little worried about this weekend more than I am worried about them going forward, just because obviously it's Jerome's first game back. Adam hasn't been doing any kicking, which I assume is to do with his groin. So all of a sudden, Jarome, who hasn't played for 5 weeks, and Adam, who hasn't kicked for 3 weeks, are going to have to do all the general play kicking. And that's probably the bit that worries me. Also, it changes the style. Like Jock's style is very different to the style you'll get from Adam and Jarome. So they're kind of both on the ball at the line, kind of running backs. Jock's more of a passer and a kicker. That just kind of changes the whole team style, but it was the style we trained for all off season. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I said I'm probably more worried about how that fits this week, just with that kind of return from injury and the combination coming back together. I think we'll play a different style to we've seen the last 3 weeks. But it's great to have Jock as a backup. It's interesting that he's named at 14. I do wonder, is that kind of a backup for the halves, or is he also looking to come on for Appy at some stage and give Appy a break? Although, as we saw in the weekend, when Appy went off, it all kind of looked fairly average. So hopefully Appy stays on most of the game. Yeah, but look, very excited to have Jarome back. I think that's great. Like, when he first went down, we were like, well, we might win one and we'll struggle
Yeah.
here. The fact we've won every game means he's coming back into a form side, and he'll bring his own magic and energy to that. So very excited to see him, and I'm sure he'll be very keen to get out there. I mean, I think he was very keen to get out there last week, so Benji had to hold him back. So yeah, very excited about that.
I actually saw Romy in the warm-up on TV last week, pretty much putting the boys through their paces. He was right at the front, had the team kit on with the hat, and he was, yelling at the boys, just the simple run-through drill. So he'll be obviously chomping at the bit to get out there. And he's our leader, and he'll bring a hell of a lot to the team. So I've got no qualms with Romy coming back in. I know AD, he's got our best or the best long kicking game in our team. I'm along the same lines of thinking as you, Josh. I'm worried that if his groin or hamstring tightness, whatever it may be, is holding that kicking back a bit, that might hamper his kicking game a bit. However, the way our forwards have been playing, if we keep advancing down the field the way that we have been, maybe we just need to run it up to about halfway or slightly over, and then Romy can use his short kicking game prowess to kick to the corners or put any attacking bombs or set up another last play option. So there are other options there, depending on how we go. But we are playing against a different opponent, Jordan. So the thing that stood out to me, and I know there's a few outs for the Broncos, and the media's been talking about injury depleted. There's a few out. I saw Billy Walters is out, Ben Hunt's out, Reece Walsh is out. They're massive. But Adam Reynolds is back, and he's the king. He's the general of that team. So he's going to steer them around. He's got a great kicking game. Speaking of busted plays, he's playing with a busted body, but if he can get through the 80 minutes, he might be enough to get that Broncos team around the park.
Yeah, and he always seems to play well against us. He has been a thorn in our side before, but with Benji seems to be making game plans per team we're playing, which every good coach does. We clearly targeted a particular side of the Knights, and it worked. His game plan should be running everything at Reynolds. Make him tackle, make him do so much work, because he's busted. He is on the wrong side of the age bracket. He has put his body on the line, game in, game out for years and years. It won't take much for an injury to occur and he would be out of the game. Now, I'm not saying to target him to hurt him, but you would need to be running everything at him, make him work. Just to go back on what Josh was saying in relation to Madden, my concern is if we do change our style, is we don't have a game manager in a sense. Like, you look at the Warriors game, do he look like a star with a lot of the stuff he did? But that is a lot to do with the space that Jock Madden creates. He digs into the line so hard.
Yep.
And it is great. It is beautiful to watch. And he did it against Newcastle. And there was one key thing that he did against the Knights was the first couple that he ran, and he got that tackle, but then he started to pass the ball, and it put the defence in two minds, because you don't know if he's going to run, you don't know if he's going to dig in, you don't know if he's going to pass out the back. And that is my biggest concern, is like, you look at the South game when we had all that possession on their line, no one was setting up to create the space. We were just hoping the space somehow opened up. And that is my only concern with moving Jock out of the team, is that he finds a way to create that space and gives the people outside him the time to create the opportunities. So I hope we don't go away from the style too much, but Adam is a very much run-first kind of player. Jarome obviously plays off the back of what he sees. But, yeah, if we're going to win this game, we need to target the edge that Adam Reynolds is on, and he needs to, within that first 20 minutes, he should be making anywhere between 10 to 15 tackles and make him work hard.
It'd be interesting, Josh, to see how this game goes. And I know I've said this before, it might not be overly popular opinion, but we'll see how the game goes. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jock comes on at some point and plays in the halves alongside Romy, and AD shifts back to lock.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to just see what happens there with Jock at 14, and obviously injuries as the game goes on may have an effect on these kind of things. But does he come on and AD? I mean, we've seen Latu come on and play that kind of. Yep. I'm not sure he has an actual position. It's kind of in the middle there. So I do wonder if Jock comes on and Adam and Romy kind of just play either side, and Jock kind of plays what Latu's been playing in the middle there, where he's not really a lock. It's just an extra ball player on the field. So, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So I kind of think that may be what happens. If I look at the Broncos, like, I know they've got Adam Reynolds and Ezra Mam, and their halves are looking good, but Jesse Arthurs is an okay winger, but he's not a fullback. And Josh Rogers is a Queensland Cup 5'8", playing at hooker. And to me, because you don't get, you see with Appy, the passes hit the guys on the chest, they're moving forward. When you bring in a fill-in hooker, what you end up with is, like, the Broncos forward pack is still quite good, but actually they're going to be getting the ball in awkward spots. They're not going to be getting the ball out in front of them. They're not going to be getting the momentum. So I think that's going to be a real advantage. I think our forwards, with Appy controlling the ruck, will come over the top of the Broncos. I think, we've dominated field position and possession. I think obviously the Broncos have got a good pack, but with an average hooker, I think that'll help us. And I don't think, lots of what the Broncos do well comes off Reece Walsh being exceptional and doing amazing things. Without him, and you're not going to get that from Jesse Arthurs, I think that gives us a real boost in comparison. And we're at home and we're on a roll and the confidence is up. Jarome's first game back. I think there's a lot of positives for us. We've just got to go out there. And I think that last 10 minutes last week is probably a real positive for us, because instead of them going in and being all excited, as I said earlier, I think Benji would have loved that, because all week he'll be, on them about how that wasn't good enough and the standards weren't high enough. And so I think they'll come out, and they won at Campbelltown for the first time in a long time. And I think they'll be wanting to keep that Campbelltown kind of spirit and win going. So I think we'll see another big performance from the boys on Saturday night.
Yeah, hopefully. We are playing the Premiers, and they do have a lot of quality players out, a lot of strike players out, but I guess they've got some pretty decent players plugging holes. And we're also welcoming back Madge, one of our former coaches, back to Campbelltown for perhaps the first time since he left. So don't quote me on that stat, but I think it might be a possibility that's happening. So if you see Madge out there, just give him a wave. And I was disappointed at the time that he left, but I think we've got a pretty decent coach, especially the way that he's going at the moment. So that's pretty much it, boys. But just looking at the head-to-heads, and I did say earlier, we don't have a great record against the Broncos. Played 34 times in total, and this is going off NRL.com. So if I'm wrong, you can blame NRL.com. We've only won 9 of those 34. We've had that one draw in our very first game with 24 losses, which is a hell of a lot of negative results. But
As Benji said, the past is the past. This is a different team and different coaches and different players. None of that matters.
We did talk a lot of nostalgia today, Josh, so maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I should have tunnel visioned on what's happening now and look ahead. But anyway, how about some score predictions? Jordan, what are you thinking? How are we going to win and what's the score going to be?
If we're going to win, it's going to be by our forwards. We keep Payne Haas quiet. We keep Adam Reynolds quiet. We play the same field possession game we did against the Knights, and we could open up a decent score. I think with a bit of the scrutiny the Broncos have copped, they're going to come out firing. I'd say it's going to be close, but I'm going to give us maybe 30-18.
30-18, not bad. Not bad. Josh, what's your thoughts?
I think the boys are going to be very hot on their defence after Benji's given them a roast all weekend. I think the Broncos, with no hooker and no fullback of any note, are going to struggle to score points. I think the Tigers are going to win 34-6.
30, that's pretty comprehensive. I think that's the same score that we won our final in 2005.
There you go. That's what it's based. Yeah.
So you've turned back the clock. We're not looking ahead. We're looking back to the past again. Very good. Well, hopefully we're going to win. I'm going to tip us again. Not overly confident, but that's just me. Probably more nerves and anxiety than anything. But I'm going to say it's going to be tighter than what everyone thinks. And in the 79th minute, Appy's going to dart out a dummy half and look to throw long, and he's going to throw a short one to Alex Twal, who's going to crash over and win the match-winning try. And I think we're going to win probably 20-14. So, and just thinking about that, I reckon Appy may end up being our goal kicker on the weekend.
I think he might. Yeah.
Patrick Herbert can kick too.
Can he? Okay. Yeah, actually, you're right. I did see that during captain's run before our first game at Leichhardt. I was watching that, and Royce Hunt can actually kick. He's a great goal kicker. So, big Royce, if you're on the field,
goal kicking prop, that'd be fantastic. Give Royce the boots for kicking. Yes,
I've got footage. I should put on the West Tigers podcast forum. Just to have a look at big Royce kicking one from about 40 out straight over the post. So, yeah, I'd love to see that. But yes, anyway, get out to Campbelltown if you can. 7:35 on Saturday night, and hopefully our boys can get another W and charge towards that top tier on the ladder. Be nice to get in front of Penrith, wouldn't it?
Very much. We could be leading the comp at the end of this weekend, so very exciting.
Might have to call it. Jordan will have to ask Mr. Volandis just to shut the comp down and gives the minor premiership.
I think if there is a not so flattering stat, I don't think the Tigers have ever been outright first after a regular season round ever.
There you go.
Well, that's interesting. Well, records are meant to be broken, and maybe it's going to happen. Maybe not, but with a good win this week, you never know. We'll see how we go. Thanks, boys. It's been fun.
No worries, guys.
Great job tonight, mate.
Thanks, boys. Take it easy.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.